Next step is step 10. If you have put tasks into your template and created relationships, you may consider whether you need to put in lags or leads. Let's start with lags. I'm just noticing here in row 18 that we're allowing 7 days for the basement walls to cure because we've poured concrete. This is one way of putting the 7 days in. Another way would just be to create a 7-day delay between these two tasks, 3.3 and 3.5. I'm going to select row 18 and I'm going to delete it. And instead I'm going to put a 7-day lag between these two. So let me first of all start by connecting them by typing 17 in here, and now they're reconnected. But there needs to be a 7-day lag between these two in order for the concrete to cure. So the 17 I'm going to replace with 17 finish start plus 7 days. The only time we actually add finish start is when we add a lead or a lag. And a lag is a plus because it's an addition and a delay. And so when I add 7 days, you can see that happening here. Now the 7 days just happens to capture a weekend in there. If we need 7 days for the concrete to cure, but we don't need that 7 days to take into account public holidays or weekends or non-working time, we can enter what we call an elapsed duration, which means it ignores the project calendar and just gives you literally 7 days. I'm going to edit this by pressing F2 or clicking up here in my entry bar, and all you do is put an E in front of the days. An E in front of the duration unit means elapsed, and so when I press enter, you'll notice that it's shrunk the gap between these two tasks a little bit because it's literally 7 days irrespective of weekends, public holidays or non-working time. So that's one way to put a delay in here. I could do the same further down here. I noticed there was some more concreting going on down here, poor concrete driveway and sidewalks. So again, I may have to allow 7 days or maybe just 72 hours, I think, for it to cure enough for us to install a backyard fence. So here it's got 47, I'll put 47 finish start plus 72 elapsed hours. And so I press enter, and that's giving me a 72 hour delay lag in order for that concrete to cure enough for me to start putting the fence up. So think about any lags. And the other thing is leads. So for example, I might decide that some things really don't have to wait before they start. Like I'm looking here and I'm going cabinets. Let me scroll to task. The cabinets are happening after the painting and the wallpapering is done. Well, the last couple of days of the painting and wallpapering, they could start putting the cabinets together because it's more of a tidy up thing. So I want to create an overlap between these two, which is a lead. So where the 40 appears, I would say something like this: 40 finish start. Now, not a plus because that adds a delay, but a minus to go back. And if this is taking 17 days, then I would say minus, actually just 2 days. And if I go minus 2 days, then that says 2 days off the completion of painting and wallpapering, let's start putting the cabinets together. So you can do it that way, or some people like to see the arrow not come off the end of row 40, but come off the beginning. So let's do this, 40 SS. Now if it's a start, then it has to be a plus. 17 minus 2, that's the duration of that task, is 15 days. So that means I want row 40 and 41 to start at the same time, but row 40 gets a 15-day head start. And so what we end up is this. Same sort of effect where there's a 2-day overlap, but it's coming from the beginning here. This task is a start with this one, but this one here starts 15 days after the start of this one here. Another way is percentages. I might say, look, let's let them get 80% through and then we'll start doing the cabinets. So instead of plus 15 days, I'm just going to take that out, F2, and I'm going to go plus 80%. And so that gives them an 80% head start. So if the duration of paint and wallpaper varies, it just means when it's 80% through, then start the cabinets. So I quite like the leads as well, and that's a massive time saver. So think about whether you need leads or lags into your project template. The one thing to avoid, I think, is accidentally putting constraints on. So for example, if I think, oh look, perform the final walkthrough inspection, I look at this and go 22nd of February, I can't make that. So I go and change that to the 23rd of February. Whether I intended to or not, I have literally just put a constraint onto that task by playing with that date. And the constraint appears in the indicator column as this little square here. And it says basically because you push that date out a day, this task will start no earlier than the 23rd of February because you pushed it out a day. And that then starts causing problems from a template perspective. So to get rid of any little constraints that you may have inadvertently applied, double click the task, go to advanced and set it back to the default constraint type, which is as soon as possible. Don't worry about that date. It means that task will go back to starting as soon as possible, which will be the 22nd of February, and that will disappear and the constraint will be gone. If you did want to delay that by a day, I would actually do this. I'd go 53 finish start plus 1 day, and that will push it out to the 23rd and then have repercussions on every task that occurs after that. So I'd rather see that as your approach and undo to take that off. Step 11 is setting up your resources. People, materials, equipment, costs that you want to assign to tasks and typically want to show on the Gantt chart. If you're going to work with resources, and maybe you're not, some templates we don't add resources because we don't use resources, we subcontract everything out. Then you don't have to put in your template. But if you do use resources, you need to go to a view called the resource sheet, and I want to take you through that. Now, first of all, the quick access toolbar that resides up the top here in the top left of your screen, I'm going to customize it again. I want to turn on the view button, super handy. The view button is a button that allows me to quickly flick between the different views in project because there's so many of them and I need a quick, easy way to do that, hence the quick access toolbar. So I want quick access to the resource sheet. Now the resource sheet is where you list all your resources. So let's start with maybe some personalities. I'm going to put Cathi in here. I might put Dennis in here. So you can have personalities if you wish. And under that, I might then decide I want to put some trades. So I might put electrician, plumber, and painter, and fitter. Now, then I might decide that I want to put some contractors in. So I might have a site excavation contractor, a concrete contractor, even a framing contractor. So even a landscape contractor. Oops. So put all the various types of resources you have available. You might even have some equipments like a digger or a post hole borer for the fence. Even materials like concrete. And maybe you even have some expenses like travel. So I've given you a variety here. Now also I might decide the electrician, let's take a copy of those. No, let's move the fitter up. So just like the Gantt chart, you can select a row and you can move it up. I'm going to take these 3 people here because I have a day shift and a night shift version of these people, for example. And I'm going to paste them here. And this one I'll change F2 to day shift, F2, day shift, F2, day shift, F2 night shift, F2 night shift, and F2 night shift. All right. Okay. So we've got some resources here. Now, these are all work except for concrete. Concrete's a material. So I'm going to change this to material. And travel is a cost. So I'm going to change this to cost, just to give you a variety of the sorts of things you can do in your resource sheet. So you've got three options here. Something can be work, which means they're going to charge you on an hourly rate and they're going to work on the project. Something can be material, which means it's going to cost you per unit measure, and something can be just a straight cost, straight up. Okay, so those are the three there. Now the material label only applies to material. Concrete comes in meters cubed. If we had put certain chemicals, they might have been in kilograms. If we put gibboard, it might have been in meters squared, lineal meters, things like that. So whatever material applies to that label applies to that material. That's what we want to put in there. And then the cost per cubic meter we put in here. So maybe $250 per cubic meter. So that's how that works. Whereas the digger, maybe that costs us each time we use them, and the post hole borer. So it's $500 each time we use the digger, and it's $400 each time we use the post hole borer. So that's how that column works. Now, the initials is just something that you could assign to each resource to identify them, and the group is something you could assign as well if you wanted to. So I could just say these were staff, and I could just fill that down, for example. Whereas these were trades, and I could fill that down if I wanted to. Things like that. And these are contractors. You don't have to use all of these columns, but if you did, that's how you'd use it. Okay. Now the maximum number of units, I have one cathi and one Dennis. Sometimes you'll see percentages in here, and I don't like percentages. I don't want to see 100% cathi, 100% Dennis. So if you want to change it to decimal, as I've done, you'll have to go into File, and you'll have to go to Options, and you'll have to go to Schedule, and instead of showing assignment units as percentage, you may be like me and show assignment units as decimal. So choose that option there. Electrician's day shift, we might have 10, plumber's day shift 8, and fitters we might have 5, and again 10, 8, and 5. That's how many you've got. I might have 6 painters, 1 excavation contractor, 1 contractor, 1 contractor, 1 contractor, 2 diggers, and 3 post hole borers. How many you've got of each is basically what that's about. Now the standard rate, if somebody's on a salary, for example, maybe 100,000 per year, you just put that value per Y. And when you assign somebody to 2 hours on a task, it works out how much that 2 hours is going to cost you if they're on that salary figure. And let's say Dennis is on the same salary, so I'm just going to fill it down. Whereas if you've got standard hourly rate, electrician maybe 60, plumber maybe 60 as well, and fitter 60, same. And they might be on overtime of 80, 80, 80. And then I'll do the same here. So I'll fill those figures there down for these. So you may not do this. Some clients have their own job costing, their own costing system, and so they don't get into this, and that's fine. But if you do get into this, this is showing you how you could do it. So maybe 55 for the painter, excavation contractor, I'll leave those blank because they're going to give us an invoice. And that's basically your cost, your standard rates, hourly, overtime rates, or the cost per use. Now, the cost of the resource is prorated over the life of the task you assign them to, not typically at the start or the end of the task, but prorated across the task. And each resource that you add to your resource sheet is given a copy, their very own copy of the standard calendar. So it assumes that each of these people work Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, Dennis may not work Mondays and Fridays. He works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I need to customize his copy of the calendar, and you can do that. If I double click Dennis, for example, I can go into change working time. And there's the details or the copy of Dennis's standard calendar. Now, if I want to change the details regarding his work week, I go to work weeks and I go to details. And in here, I'll say that on Monday, hold the control key and click Friday. Monday and Friday are non-working for Dennis. And then OK. And if I OK again, and OK again, then he does not work Mondays and Fridays. So if I assign Dennis to a task that is currently on a Monday or a Friday, as soon as I assign Dennis, it will pull that task to the nearest available working day, which will typically be a Tuesday, because he doesn't work Monday and Friday. So you can customize each resource's copy of the standard calendar. Or if you've got a group of resources that work day shift and a group of resources that work night shift, or just different hours, you can create calendars. If I go to project and I go to change working time, I have the option over here, create new calendar. So I'll click that option. I might call it night shift calendar. That's enough. And I'll choose OK. Then I go into work weeks and into details, and I set up the details about what the night shift looks like. Now the night shift, I might say, works from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., the opposite of the day shift. So I'm going to select Monday to Friday, set these days to specific times, and say they work from midnight to 6 a.m. and then they come back at 6 p.m. and work to midnight again. And if you think about that, that's true. If you're a night shift person and you work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., on any given day, you're actually working a portion of the morning, midnight to 6 a.m., and a portion of the night, 6 p.m. to midnight again, because those 12 hours span over 2 days. And so that's what we have to do here. On a Monday, they'd be working part of the night and part of the morning, and OK. And so there I see their hours, and OK. Then if I go to the night shift people here and I choose the night shift calendar, I then apply that to the night shift workers. So you can create calendars. You have your project calendar, which we set way back in the beginning. You have your project calendar, which is the foundation of your project. A little bit unusual that we'd have a night shift when we only work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But I'm just demonstrating how you could have different calendars for different resources or resource groups and assign it to them. Or just typically double click the person and change their copy of the standard calendar. So anyway, set up the resources that you've got, how much they cost you, what hours and days they work, and also if you wanted to, you can get into the costing. Like I might decide that the painter, double click, costs us, effective as of now, $55 an hour and maybe $65 overtime. But as of the 1st of the 12th, they're going to go for a 5% increase. As soon as I press enter, it works that out, and a 5% increase in overtime. Or I could just type what they're going to get. So it means that any task you assign that resource to, effective as of that date, well, suddenly that resource will be costing you more than it did prior to that date. Yeah, and OK that. So set up your resources if you need resources in your template, and then you'll be able to assign resources to tasks. Now practice what you've learnt, absorb what we've covered, and I'll see you in the next video.